Hey everybody, we're back again. Back again to toil through the cinematic treasures of our beloved Hollywood. I'm your host, Chris. Welcome back. Hasn't been that long, has it? Beautiful sunny day outside, sunny Sunday morning. Sundays are a favorite of mine for classic films. And during our last show, we spoke at the end about doing some swashbuckling movies. And indeed, we are going to do some swashbuckling films. 1935's Captain Blood. The title sounds rough, but pirate film, long before Pirates of the Caribbean. And also 1938's The Adventures of Robin Hood. If anybody's ever seen The Adventures of Robin Hood with Errol Flynn, which, by the way, is the star of both pictures, it's a wonderful film. It really is. I mean, it is classic Hollywood all the way. So, without further ado, let's get right to it. We're going to start off our film today with Captain Blood. And 1935, before most of us were born, we have the director, Michael Curtis, screenplay, Casey Robinson, produced by Harry Joe Brown and Gordon Hollingshead. This was a novel. The film and screenplay are based on the 1922 novel by Raphael Sabatini. It stars Errol Flynn, Olivia de Havilland, the beautiful Olivia de Havilland, Basil Rathbone, and Ross Alexander. Ross Alexander. Most of this cast was in The Adventures of Robin Hood. Most of the cast is the paid staff of Warner Brothers. They're regulars. They're character actors who were on contract with them. That's why they were in so many films. It was edited by George Amy, and it was distributed by Warner Brothers. It was released on December 28th, 1935. It runs 119 minutes. Had a budget of $995,000, but it made over $3 million worldwide at the box office. As usual with all our films, I have the film playing behind me. It is a great movie. It really is at its core. It is a noir film. Captain Blood was black and white. It is a swashbuckling pirate film. Like I said before, long before Pirates of the Caribbean, these films inspired films like Pirates of the Caribbean from First International Pictures and Warner Brothers. So the plot for this film, an imprisoned doctor, which is Errol Flynn, and his fellow prisoners escape their cruel island captivity to become West Indies pirates. Now, a lot of the story was based on a true story. A lot of these characters were true people, were real. They weren't made up. An earlier 1924 Vitagraph silent film version starred Warren Carrington as Peter Blood. Flynn's performance was his breakout as a major Hollywood star, established him as a successor to Douglas Fairbanks, who did a lot of the older swashbuckling stuff. This was Olivia de Havilland's first of 8 films with Errol Flynn. Basil Rathbone would reunite with Flynn in The Adventures of Robin Hood, and Rathbone and Flynn also starred in The Dawn Patrol in 1938. Basil Rathbone, if you do not know, was the incomparable Sherlock Holmes. The movies with him as Sherlock Holmes, it's just wonderful. I have the entire set. I hunted it down for quite a long time. They finally released it on Blu-ray, and man, was it gone quick. It disappeared real fast. They're great movies. He played the detective Sherlock Holmes so well. The plot for this film, it's England, 1685. Irish doctor Peter Blood is summoned to aid as a wounded patron at a hospital who participated in the Monmouth Rebellion. Now look it up, folks. Monmouth Rebellion, it was a real thing. Arrested while performing his duties as a physician, he is convicted of treason against King James II, it was real, and sentenced to death by the infamous Judge Jeffreys, known as the hanging judge. This guy was a brutal judge. I looked him up on Wikipedia, no joke. By the whim of the king, Blood and his surviving rebels are transported to the West Indies to serve and be sold as slaves. The production of this film, after the popularity of Treasure Island 1934 and The Count of Monte Cristo revived the swashbuckling genre at Warner Brothers, was inspired to remake the 1923 version of Captain Blood. So we've talked before at length about remakes, and, you know, Today, remakes are way overdone, but this is nothing new to Hollywood. Hollywood's been doing this for quite a long time, actually. You figure a silent version definitely needs an upgrade, but sometimes silent films don't need upgrades. Silent horror films like The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari and Nosferatu, they were frightening in their own way, silent or not. And this is a great scene behind me when Judge Jeffries is sentencing Peter Blood. Even though he's a dying man and Peter Blood knows it, he still sentenced him to the gallows. The guy was brutal, apparently. Would not want to be in front of him in a British tribunal. The music score for this film, Australian composer Eric Wolfgang Korngold turned down Warner Brothers, but changed his mind once seeing the filming. He was required, now this is nuts, and I know about deadlines, and because of the business I'm in, deadlines suck. They can be a rush, and all of us probably in our daily jobs have worked with deadlines, and especially artists and especially comic book artists. I know they have extreme deadlines. Korngold was required to compose only an hour of music in only 3 weeks. He had 3 weeks to compose 1 hour. And composing music, I could never do that. That's an amazing talent that people have, composing. The greatest composers, and Beethoven, and I don't know how they did it. They were amazing. And the score won and got an Oscar nomination. It did not win, I don't believe, but it got an Oscar nomination. As far as casting goes in this film, the lead role was offered to Robert Duvall, star of Count of Monte Cristo, but turned it down, concerned that the action sequences would be too strenuous for him. Filming locations for Captain Blood, shot in the summer of 1935, Laguna Beach, California. The final battle required, now remember, this is long before the days of CGI. For people who don't know what CGI is, and there might be some young people listening to the podcast that don't know, it stands for computer-generated image. So there was no computers to put extras in. It required, the final battle scene required 2,500 extras. A lot of people. A lot of movies back then used tons of extras. Flynn himself collapsed from a bout of malaria he contracted in New Guinea. There's a great scene in the movie when some Spaniards attack the colonists where Blood and his buddies are being held as slaves, and they see it as a chance to escape. They kill the Spaniards, take over their ship, and then blow them straight out of the water while the rest of them are returning to the boat. It's pretty cool. The choreography for these films couldn't have been easy. A lot of swordplay, fencing style swordplay. When the movie premiered, December 26, 1935, at the Mark Sand Theater in New York, positive reviews and wide public approval. Awards for Captain Blood: 2001, AFI's 100 Years, 100 Thrills. 2003, AFI's 100 Years, 100 Heroes and Villains. And 2005, AFI's 100 Years of Film Scores. Cultural references to Captain Blood, there's not too many. A clip was used in The Goonies, the scene where Sloth and Chunk are in the basement when he first meets him, and he's watching the pirate movie. That is a clip from Captain Blood. If you've never seen Captain Blood, please do. It's really a great movie. It's the story is compelling. It's not just a pirates take over a ship and beat everybody up. It's not like Pirates of the Caribbean. Pirates of the Caribbean was played for a little bit of laughs by Disney, thanks to Johnny Depp, the great Johnny Depp. But this was more of a serious film in some spots. There were some lighthearted as well. There's lightheartedness in The Adventures of Robin Hood. There was a radio adaptation of this film. Captain Blood was adapted into a radio play on February 22nd, 1937, broadcast of the Lux Radio Theater. I love these names they used to use for these places in Hollywood, or like the Brown Derby in Hollywood was a big restaurant. The Lux Theater in New York, they had the Rainbow Room, that's where NBC broadcasts from now. They had these great, before television, they had these great names for these places. And they'd be broadcasted on the radio live from the radio room in so-and-so wherever, and then it would just Glenn Miller and his orchestra, and it was really great. And this was really used well and in stuff like Orson Welles' War of the Worlds. They used that in that also. Hey, when we come back, we're going to talk about, let me real quick. We'll get to it in a minute. We'll be right back. And we're back, everybody. Talking about 1935's black and white Captain Blood, starring Earl Flynn, Olivia de Havilland, and Basil Rathbone. So, a minute ago, we were talking about the radio adaptation of the film. February 22nd, 1937, broadcast from the Lux Radio Theater. Earl Flynn, de Havilland, and Rathbone reprised their roles for the film on the radio. I think that's pretty cool. My favorite part of the show, physical media. The physical media originally was released 119 minutes. Warner Brothers cut 20 minutes from the theatrical reissue in 1951, so it could fit on a double bill with another Earl Flynn picture, The Seahawk. The cut version was broadcast for many years on television and was finally fully restored at length on VHS in 1980. This version was also released on the DVD by Warner Brothers in 2005 and shown on Turner Classic Movies. Notes about this film: running time 1 hour and 59 minutes, or 119 minutes. It was black and white. The sound mix was mono, and the aspect ratio was 1.37. If nobody knows what the aspect ratio is, it's how a film was shot. So sometimes when you watch a movie, there's black bars on the top and bottom of your screens, or on the sides of your screens, like a lot of old pictures, older films, filmed in smaller ratios. The screens were different back in the 30s. Now you've got massive movie screens. They sure didn't have 70 millimeter back in 1930, I don't believe. Any final news and notes on Captain Blood? This film shows the brutality of slavery. These men who followed the king did not care about these people. As far as I'm concerned, I would absolutely give it at least 3.5 stars. I'm very careful when it comes to certain things. I used to give everything. You'll find on the show, over the shows, that I will give films high marks, and every film I review is pretty much high marks in my book. I don't buy movies I don't care for. I am an optimist, though. I am an optimist. In fact, I just purchased Oppenheimer, and I am very interested in previewing that later on today. I wasn't interested when it was in the theaters, but, some movies to me, I'm okay with watching them at home. I don't need to go to the theater to see every film, especially with the high prices of movie tickets these days. It's becoming a luxury. Captain Blood, the story of Peter Blood is a sad and rigorous one, I think. In the beginning of the film, he's just doing his duty. All doctors are sworn to an oath, and he was imprisoned for doing his oath. I mean, this is the way King James ran things. It was bad, I'm sure. But please, do yourself a favor. You have to go out and stream Captain Blood. Find it. It's streaming. I noticed on Amazon it's available. Okay. Captain Blood, ladies and gentlemen. Earl Flynn, early Earl Flynn picture. Very nice. Very good film. In a little bit, when we come right back after this short break, we're going to talk feature 2, The Adventures of Robin Hood. Don't go away. Welcome back, everybody. Just a quick note. I want to go back to Captain Blood, 1935's Captain Blood, real quick. The DVD from 2005, Warner Home Video. These classic Warner films that were released back in the early 2000s, these DVDs were so in detail and comprehensive. Leonard Maltin, who's a wonderful movie critic, has been for a long time. The special features on this disc, and this disc, I'm not sure if it's out of print. I think you can find it used. I believe it is out of print, brand new, even on Amazon. Leonard Maltin hosts Warner Night at the Movies. Now, if you don't know what Night at the Movies was, back in the 30s and 40s, they would have a whole program. And these programs Warner put on their DVD collections. So you would see a newsreel. Remember, there was no television yet. You would see a newsreel. You would see a musical short. You would see a comedy short and a cartoon and theatrical trailers for other films. And Warner presents this right on this disc for you to watch, just like you would back in 1935. You can watch the whole thing from beginning to end and the feature film. It really is like supposed to be a experience. Also, there's a feature on the disc, a documentary called Captain Blood, A Swashbuckler is Born. It has an audio. Oh, my goodness. How about that? The radio production is on the disc, ladies and gentlemen. I was just talking about finding a copy of it, and it's in my hands. Surprise, surprise. It has an audio-only bonus radio production of the film stars. That's wonderful. I'll have to check that out. Languages, English and France, and subtitles in English and France and Espanol. Our second feature of the day. Spinning behind me right now on the old TV. 1938's The Adventures of Robin Hood. Technicolor film, Warner Brothers. Screenplay, Norman Riley Rain, Seton I. Miller, Roland Lee. Was produced by Hal B. Wallace and Henry Blake. The film stars Errol Flynn, Olivia de Havilland, Alan Hale. Alan Hale is the father of Alan Hale Jr., who played the skipper on Gilligan's Island. Basil Rathbone, the great Claude Rains, and Una O'Connor, who was another contracted actor by Warner Brothers. She was in quite a few films. Cinematography, Tony Gaudio, Sol Polito, and W. Harold Green was Technicolor photo, edited by Ralph Dawson. It was released May 14th, 1938, running at 102 minutes. Budget $2 million. Took in over almost $4 million at the box office. Now, Claude Rains, we all know Claude Rains. Well, if you don't know who Claude Rains is, sometimes I forget I have to educate people on stuff that they might not know who Claude Rains is. Claude Rains played the Invisible Man in the Universal Monster films. He also played Eric in the Technicolor remake of Phantom of the Opera for Warner Brothers. And he also played the father of the Wolfman. He was the father in The Wolfman with Lon Chaney Jr., his dad. And I don't want to give away that ending, but something tragic happens in that one involving his dad. It's hard for me to explain too much of the film because I don't want to give away the film. I want to try to excite you on the movie, not give away too much. And then you say, oh, well, geez, he just said the plot. I don't need to bother. No, you need to bother. Trust me. These films are wonderful. The plot for Robin Hood. Richard, a Norman. Now, this is kind of like Family Feud here. The Normans and the Saxons didn't get along in England, period. So, Richard, King of England, a Norman, taken captive in 1191 by Duke Leopold while returning from the Third Crusade. The Crusades, look them up, the Holy Crusades. Another film that showcased the Crusades was Kingdom of Heaven, Ridley Scott's Kingdom of Heaven. And do yourself a favor, if you ever catch that one, make sure it's the director's cut. It's very, very good. Long movie, by the way. So, Prince John, Richard's brother, who's played by Claude Rains, is aided by fellow Norman Sir Guy of Gisborne, names himself Regent of England. Sir Guy Gisborne was played by Basil Rathbone. So they join up, increasing the Saxons' taxes under the pretense of gathering a ransom for Richard's release. The Normans exploit and oppress the Saxons instead of trying to free Richard in their bid to take over the kingdom. Sir Robin of Locksley, played by Errol Flynn, gathers a band of men to fight the Normans until Richard returns. This film is one of the crown jewels of the Warner Brothers library. I would love to see this movie in 35 millimeter. With all the HD, I love high definition. I really do. I just truly believe that high definition. I recently saw Jaws a year ago at a theater, a wonderful theater in my town, Colonial Theater, and where they actually filmed The Blob with Steve McQueen. They show classic films, and they show Jaws once a year. And I got to see it in 35 millimeter. And after seeing it in 35 millimeter, I believe that high definition has spoiled us, because when you see it, it's almost like a culture shock because it's not crisp. It's got scratches. But there's something to be said about seeing a film in 35 millimeter. And I would absolutely love to see The Adventures of Robin Hood in 35 millimeter film instead of digital. When we come back, the production for The Adventures of Robin Hood, and we'll continue to talk about Errol Flynn's career and this wonderful, wonderful film. Stay loose, everybody. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everybody, to the discussion. Oh, please. It was only a short break. Thank you. Welcome back, everybody. We're discussing 1938's The Adventures of Robin Hood with Errol Flynn. Production cost for this film, $2 million. The most expensive film Warner Brothers made up to that date. Also, the studio's first 3-strip Technicolor process. Now, you know what's great about Wikipedia and what's great about the internet is that the stuff you can discover you only used to have to find in libraries. The film was originally supposed to be in black and white. 3 months before production started, they changed their mind. They wanted it in color, and I'll tell you, it looks great in color. The colors really burst off the screen. The scene right now behind me when Robin actually crashes a dinner at Nottingham Castle and is basically laughing right in the face of Richard's brother and Sir Guy of Gisborne and telling them we're not going to take this anymore. And then, of course, they don't like his tongue, so they throw a weapon at him, lance, and he starts fighting them, and it's pretty wild. It all goes into chaos. Believe it or not, James Cagney, the great James Cagney, was originally cast as Robin Hood, but walked out on his Warner Brothers contract. Why he did, I don't know. I'd have to dig that up a little bit and maybe get that information for a later show. This paved the way for Errol Flynn. Filming was postponed for 3 years as a result of Cagney walking out. Bidwell Park in Chico, California was used as Sherwood Forest. Shooting was there for that. Also shot at Warner Brothers Burbank and Walker Ranch in Calabasas. The archery tournament was filmed on the former Busch Gardens, now a part of Lower Aero Park in Pasadena, California. The stunts for this film, all the arrows in the film, were shot by a professional archer named Howard Hill. Errol Flynn performed most of the stunts except for Robin jumping onto a horse with his hands tied behind his back. And the other one he did not do was scaling the fortress gate and a few shots in the battle scene between him and Sir Guy Gisborne and Robin. They had to use stuntmen, but Errol Flynn did most of his own stunts. A lot of Hollywood leads do a lot of their own stunts, demand it. Harrison Ford, God bless him, what a treasure. He did a lot of his stunts for Indiana Jones and Star Wars. He just wanted to do them. And, they want to protect their lead actors in films, and that's why they don't allow them to do the stunts. But sometimes the actors will do it, or they'll walk, and they don't want that. The stunts were amazing in Robin Hood. Everything is adventurous about this film. The musical score, Eric Wolfgang returned. Yes, the same gentleman who composed Captain Blood. He composed on a week-by-week basis in case he was not happy with what he composed. Now, that's quite interesting because he wanted to make sure he was doing it right. And if he, the creator, artist, I'm an artist myself, and we are our worst critics. And I can probably understand how Mr. Wolfgang felt. John Williams, the great John Williams, he cited Korngold as his inspiration for scoring Star Wars, possibly one of the greatest film scores ever. The reception for this film, reviews were positive, and critics and reviewers saying that Errol Flynn thrills as Robin Hood. And he really did. It was an amazing film. It still is an amazing film. And I don't think this film was remade two or three times. And I really enjoy Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. That is a great movie. If you've never seen that, please check it out. It's a remake of Robin Hood, The Adventures of Robin Hood. It stars Morgan Freeman and Kevin Costner as Robin Hood. Very good movie. Very good movie. The box office for Robin Hood, it's the 6th highest grossing film of the year for 1938. Just over $4 million in revenues at a time now. I want you guys, I hope you're sitting down listening to this podcast right now because it took in over $4 million in revenues at a time when the average ticket price was less than, are you ready, 25 cents. That's right. People used to pay less than 25 cents to go see a movie. I remember my grandmother telling me a story that she went to see Dracula with her sisters, with starring Bela Lugosi, the great Bela Lugosi. And she paid a nickel to get in to see it. Man, if we could pay a nickel to see movies today. Amazing. Warner Brothers was so pleased with Flynn He got cast in Dodge City and The Private Lives of Elizabeth and Essex by the end of the decade. A sequel, Sir Robin of Locksley, was announced but never went into development. Honors 2001, number 84, the best films of all time. One of the best films of all time, number 84 on the list. I think it should be a little higher than that. Home media, 1982, Warner Brothers released the VHS of the film, probably on rental at that point, because in 82 you could not buy. They were rental only there in the video stores. 1989, MGM United Artists released the home video. At that point, you could start buying. There were stores. There was a great store called Suncoast Video at the malls, and you could go in and purchase movies on VHS. 1991, August 28th, the Laserdisc was released. And in DVD, 2003, Warner Brothers. I had the DVD. I decided to upgrade to Blu-ray. Better picture, better sound. Like I said, we're spoiled by better picture and better sound, high def. In 2008, the Blu-ray was released, and the special features on the Blu-ray are amazing. There's a great scene behind me right now where Claude Rains, who plays Richard's brother, signs the death warrant for Robin, and he signs it violently and looks at Guy Gisman and says, "There's a death sentence for your Robin of Locksley." And Gisman says, "I'll have him dangling in a week." Pretty good stuff. Back to the special features of that Blu-ray. There's a commentary by film historian Rudy Belmer. Here we go again. Leonard Maltin hosts Warner Night at the Movies, 1938. Vintage newsreel. Freddie Rich and his orchestra, musical short. Angels with Dirty Faces, theatrical trailer, which is another great gangster movie starring James Cagney. I'll get to at another show. It has outtakes. Robin Hood Through the Ages, excerpts from the 1912 screen adaptation and the Douglas Fairbanks 1922 silent version and this version, and it's dubbed in German. A Journey to Sherwood Forest documentary, two classic Warner Brothers cartoons, Rabbit Hood and Robin and Daffy. We'll get into those in a few minutes and next part of the show. Journey to Sherwood Forest, Splitting the Arrow, historical art, costume design, concept calling designs, cast and crew, vintage shorts, breakdowns of the 1938 studio blooper reel, audio-only bonuses, has music-only track, that's a soundtrack of the film, the Robin Hood radio show, Corn Gold piano sessions, which was Wolfgang's piano sessions, and has an Earl Flynn trailer gallery of all his films. When it was on DVD, when I had the DVD, this was split into two discs. You see, DVD didn't have the capacity to hold as much information as Blu-ray. And I'm going to go back to this argument about streaming. I enjoy streaming. It's okay. But let me tell you something, guys. You will not find all these special features on streaming. Okay? They're the only way to get this stuff and to really educate yourself and learn and enjoy this stuff. As a film fan, as a cinemaphile, this is a wonderful presentation. You get everything on one disc. You could sit there. Let me put it to you this way. The Alien films, the wonderful Alien films. There is a set I have that has so much on it. It could take you up to a week, if not longer, to see every single thing on these discs. It's just a bounty of information. The legacy of this film, well, we're going to discuss that when we come back into our final segment. Be right back. We're back, everybody. So we were talking about the special features on the Blu-ray, how wonderful they are. Like I said, it all fits on the one disc if you get the Blu-ray, and the picture is very nice. So, legacy of this film, 1949, Bugs Bunny, Rabbit Hood, and the other cartoon is Robin Hood Daffy, where Daffy Duck actually tries to convince Porky Pig, who plays Friar Tuck, that he is Robin Hood, and he just doesn't believe him, and that leads to a whole slapstick of stuff. The bigger cartoon was the 1949 Rabbit Hood, where Earl Flynn, a clip from the film was actually used in the cartoon for the clip from the cartoon was actually used in the cartoon from the film itself. At the end of the cartoon, the whole cartoon, this guy keeps saying, Robin Hood is coming, Robin Hood is coming. And nobody believes him. And finally, Bugs says to him, you've been saying that in that Brooklyn accent of Bugs has. You've been saying that through the whole picture. And he finally shows up and says, welcome to Sherwood. And Bugs has this funny look on his face, and he goes, nah, it can't be him. What is this late in the show? Somebody's showing up? Hold on. Let me find out who this is. All right. Who? Oh, geez. She doesn't show up. She doesn't show up for the last 2.5 shows. And now she decides to just stroll on in. Hey, Red's back.
Hello, people. How are we doing?
Where have you been when I've been doing these shows?
Well, if you'd find better movies to talk about, I would be here.
Ooh, that's rough. Remember, everybody has an opinion.
Yeah, we'll see.
So I was just actually wrapping the show up talking about the legacy of the Adventures of Robin Hood. I also did 1935's Captain Blood, which I don't know if you've ever seen that one.
I doubt it.
Or really wanted to. Just not your type of movie.
No.
You have seen the Adventures of Robin Hood, though.
Yeah, it's okay. I don't know.
I know how much you enjoy movie mistakes and bloopers. There is a movie mistake and blooper in this film. Talk about legacy, where one of Robin's merry men go out to head off an assassin. And when he does, another guy, he gets injured, and another friend comes along and sees him. And when the guy gets off the horse, in the background, you can actually see a car go by.
Well, now that's worth seeing.
It actually is pretty funny, and I actually had to look for it in the film, and it's one of those kind of moments where you really have to pause it because it happens so fast, you'll actually miss it. We were also just talking about Rabbit Hood with Bugs Bunny.
Oh, yeah, the infamous Bugs Bunny.
Yeah, the scene at the end when he goes, welcome to Sherwood, when he swings on the vine. Nothing's better of how he tortures the sheriff. Isn't it the sheriff of Rottingham in the... No, that's the Mel Brooks, Men in Tights.
No, I don't remember what it was. I don't know it was Rottingham.
And by the way, I know you've seen Men in Tights, Mel Brooks. The great Mel Brooks.
It's been a while.
And it is a funny movie. I think it was Mel Brooks was the sheriff of Rottingham. That was his name. Instead of the sheriff of Nottingham, it was the sheriff of Rottingham.
That sounds like something Mel Brooks would do.
Yeah. Another great, in the beginning of the film, when the credits are going, this village is getting flaming arrows. And the people yell, every time they make a Robin Hood film, our village burns down. And they all go, leave us alone, Mel Brooks. And here's something you may not have known. Earl Flynn's sword play. I was talking earlier about the stuntmen who worked with him and the fencing that he does and the way he does it was an important part of the choreography in the Star Wars films. In fact, a lot of the actors had to watch Earl Flynn do his stuff on film to be able to wield a lightsaber. It's pretty cool, and you can see all that on those documentaries. Here's something I bet you didn't know for all you Disney fans. 2010's Tangled. The name of the character. What was the name of the princess who was trapped in the tower? Rapunzel, right?
Yeah.
Right. Her boyfriend that she doesn't love at first, but
Flynn Rider.
Flynn Rider. That's right. It was partly inspired by Earl Flynn, his name. So they kind of designed him after an Earl Flynn style character.
Well, I think that was obvious.
Well, it wasn't obvious to me until I actually seen that.
Come on.
No. And you know what's funny about Tangled? I only seen it once.
Really?
I've only watched it one time. I wasn't big on it. Just like Frozen. I'm just not that into it.
Well, it's because you don't have a little daughter anymore. You have a big girl.
Yeah, unfortunately, when your kids are younger, and you see more of those Disney films, and I haven't watched those Disney films as much as I used to watch them, or be forced to watch them, as the case may be, 100 times over.
Mm-hmm.
Oh boy, walk down to the dungeon, and I may have a big film this next show. I really might. I think it's going to take up the entire show.
And what is this week's coming up film?
I think we're going to do The Godfather pretty soon.
Oh, Lord.
I would like to do The Godfather this week. We'll see how it goes. We need to. I'm going to have a special guest on this show. I don't know if you're going to be involved. We can get you involved later on if you like.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see.
Through the magic of editing, everybody, we can get you involved. I know you've seen The Godfather through in its entirety.
Yeah, but it's just not my thing, baby.
It doesn't have
Just
to
not
be your
my
thing.
bag.
I review a lot of films that isn't my thing or aren't my thing.
Yeah, but you enjoy it more than I do.
Well, it depends on what kind of film we're talking about. Like, I did The Never-Ending Story with you because you enjoyed the film, not because I enjoyed the film. It's okay. You know? It's just not me. Well, anyway, The Godfather is definitely on the horizon, ladies and gentlemen. And let me tell you something. We spoke before about this at length. There are some people who have never even seen The Godfather, which pains me to death.
Well, I don't know. If I had never met you, I don't know that I would have.
Well, you have to remember something. Our audience can be comprised of younger people who may not have seen these films. And I believe The Godfather, there are certain films that are just required viewing. There is a book you can buy, 100 films you have to watch before you die. And believe me when I tell you, they're top-notch films. And Captain Blood and The Adventures of Robin Hood are two films you definitely have to see. That is definitely on the docket. These two films, it's been great reviewing them. And there really isn't much more to say about them. You have to go see these films. You have to see these films. Like I said, if you can find them playing at a local theater or anniversaries, this is why I wish studios would do that. I wish they would have anniversaries for all the films and re-release them in the theater instead of streaming them. Re-release them. Let people see them on the big screen. More people would see the films at length if they went to the theater to see it. I believe the theater will attract more people. In fact, it was funny. We were talking a little bit ago about when the film was initially released, it made over $4 million at the box office at a time when ticket prices were less than 25 cents. That's right, 25 cents. I said it again.
It's just so expensive to go to the movies anymore.
So when I was a kid, a matinee was $3.50.
Yeah,
when we were
I remember that
early on, right? Yep. Yeah, and that was pretty cheap. I mean, you could for a few dollars, you can go get for under $10, you can get popcorn and go see a movie.
Yep.
And a drink.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the ticket will cost you $14 for a matinee if you're lucky enough to find a $14 one a person, and then you go spend $30 at the concessions, which is ridiculous. This is why movie theaters have to come up with new ways to get people in.
They do, because for that amount, you can go to a restaurant and have a meal.
But I'll tell you what. It would also help if the movies were good.
There you go.
Attention, Hollywood.
Or if they'd stop remaking movies that have already been made and they suck even more.
And we were just talking about that on the back of the special features for the Robin Hood Blu-ray. Apparently, there was a 1912 version and a 1922 silent version. So, like I said before, it's nothing new to Hollywood that they're making these movies, they're remakes. Except that today, the remakes are more prevalent. If the film does bad, they have to remake it 2 years later because they want to do. You know how many times they've tried to remake the Fantastic Four and it's flopped? Yeah. It's not working, Hollywood. I don't know if it's the studio being involved, getting their hands in it and ruining it, because the directors and studios, you know how they clash. And like I was talking about The Godfather, Coppola. Oh, good Lord, he fought with the studio tooth and nail. And he threatened to leave the film more than once. And I don't think that directors, this is why people like George Lucas fought so hard. George Lucas, I believe to this day, is not part of the Screen Actors Guild or part of the union because he refused to do it. Or the Directors Guild. And George Romero, he filmed all his films out here on the East Coast because he wanted nothing to do with Hollywood. All he had to do was get enough money to make a distributor, and that was it. So that's it. Hey, Red, hey, thanks for popping in. I appreciate your input.
Well, sure, not a problem. I wish it was a better movie, but there you go.
And before we leave, of course, my final thought. Young children might really enjoy Captain Blood and the Adventures of Robin Hood for their swashbuckling action. And we wouldn't have films like Pirates of the Caribbean if it wasn't for these films, if it wasn't for the films of Errol Flynn. Sadly, He died young of a heart attack. And his films would live on. And some of these films are being brought back to life thanks to Warner Archive. And that's it. This big dumb show comes to its close. Thanks to Red for stopping by.
Hey, nice to see you all.
We'll see what happens next week. I promise everybody The Godfather is definitely coming on the docket. I am so excited to review this film. And see you next time.